Would it be out of place to say, well, we'll still have militants, especially in Ondo State?
Oh, we do. We still have militants.
And these are people who haven't actually, because we're trying to look at subsequent elections, these are people who say their grouse is with the
amnesty program, yeah.
That they were not included.
Yeah, that's true.
Because if they're not taken care of as we speak, it then means that, these same people can actually disrupt future elections.
We should expect that. And that's where I think the media should also come in. One of the things we should be taking out of the SOD by-election is this issue of the militants. The government ought to step in and attend to their needs. I don't know how this should be done. It's not INEC's problem. But I think all of us as Nigerians need to really look at whatever their grievances. I feel the government has tried a bit. I say a bit, quote unquote, with what they're doing about the amnesty program. But some of them are cosmetic measures. Because when you hear that roads are being built, electricity, does that empower the average Nigerian?
But again, isn't it ironic to see that the man who is at the helm of affair managing the amnesty program is also from Ondo State? If people would come out of his own state and say they are militants and they've not benefited from the amnesty program, which involves training, stipends, and the like, how well can anyone, the media or INEC, help to highlight the issues of the militants in that particular state?
INEC may not be in the best position to highlight this, but I think the media could. I'd expected that after April 5, that the media should have moved in to also interview these militants, to know their grievances, and also to help them publicize this. I'd expected that. But for INEC, if we are not allowed to conduct an election somewhere, we have the alternative dispute resolution unit in place that can move in. We've been talking to community leaders here and there, and we keep doing that. But then there's a limit to what INEC can do in this regard. But I think the media has a vital role to play in this.
Yeah, some people will be, curious as to how come they're still militants, because we also remember the guidelines for amnesty as at the point when it came out in 2009, and they were still taking it in batches. There were, provisions made for first batch and second batch, and, even they kept on stretching it. And after a while, they had to close the gates as to if you have not declared your arms and, asked for amnesty, there was no way you're going to be absorbed into that particular program.
That was the deadline.
That was a deadline. And at that point in time, if you came out with arms, I think you're supposed to be picked up by the security agencies and prosecuted as you should be. But one would wonder how, all of these things are still rearing their ugly heads. But looking forward, I think my colleague has an announcement to make quickly.
We just have to bring this information to you out there. It's just in. An explosion has rocked the Nyanya Park in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. And then eyewitness account tell us that the casualty figures, we're still trying to get it out. Our correspondents are there at the moment, just trying to confirm all of those to us. But the incident is said to have occurred at about 6:45 a.m. A bus is said to be involved in this, but there are some casualties. But yes, that's the breaking news just coming through today. But we'll get you more information on this matter as we get them. But let's get back to this one now. And
sorry, because now that he said, because it's quite important what he said, that the media and everyone should come in on this. Mm-hmm. Because if we are going, a date hasn't been fixed for the rerun of this particular election, and we are talking about 2015 where we have general elections, because I also recall that then the government did say if you haven't actually come out to meet the deadline, you're termed a criminal. Mm-hmm. So perhaps now is the time for us to highlight this, and even Mr. Kingsley Kuku and his team should speak up on this. Do we have criminals around or people masquerading as militants? Have you made any formal security report on this particular election and what transpired on that day?
Yeah.
What was the response like? Because I also find it it sounds a little incongruous that the Navy would come and intervene and they still couldn't make headway.
Now, we should understand the role of security agencies in the conduct of election. Mm-hmm. It's, first of all, in polling units, security agencies are not meant to bring arms to any polling unit. They stand there it's only policemen that are allowed in polling units. But then the other security agencies like the army, if it's on land, then the navy, it's on water, are only allowed to patrol
A certain
at a
distance.
certain distance.
Yeah.
They can only move in if there's any issue of violence. In an instance where you had a band of, let me say Nigerians, if you don't want to use the word militants, take over a particular place and say you can't go out because they have grievances with the government. The Navy can only come in and appeal. They will not be expected to use any force of arms. And precisely that was what they did on that day. Even in certain instances, the Army too, everybody, no, we always come in together, work together to appeal. Because use of force does not go down well with democracy. Before you know it,
there's an electoral offense. At what stage does an electoral offense kick in, and who reports? How is arrest made?
Now, and it depends on whatever electoral offense. In this particular instance, where we were at Iraq, we call it Iraq registration area camp, where we had slept overnight on Friday till Saturday, and 5 in the morning, 5:30 when we were about to leave, was when we were rounded up. My men were rounded up by these people. My men were unarmed. There was nothing they could do about that. But they sent text messages around, which we picked, and then we alerted the security agencies. Of course, the security agencies will not be expected to have used arms to disband them.
Materials
Materials were
hijacked.
with us. They were not hijacked. They just reminded us, sorry, you can't go out, because we had grounds with the government. And so we had to use whatever means, peaceful, to make sure that it did not resort to violence. And that was precisely what we did that day. And after a series of appeals, practically all day, and they wouldn't budge until maybe about 3 when they said, okay, now it's elections are over, write on your result sheets that no election took place here. They knew what they were doing.
So it was calculated.
It was calculated, it was deliberate to make a point. And once as soon as our men did this, they were released.
This is why you made allusion to 2015
Yes,
elections.
that there are certain issues that all of us need to do. My colleague Mike Guinea has been here a number of times, and he has said the conduct of election, 10% of it really, in terms of person, in terms of manpower, lies with INEC. The bulk of it lies with other Nigerians. You're talking of our ad hoc staff, about 90%, 95% are ad hoc staff, non-INEC members of staff. You're talking of security agencies. You're talking of political parties. You're talking of the voters themselves. So it's a collective thing. It's not just an INEC affair. That's INEC. INEC will do its own. INEC is doing its own. And if you look at from 2011 till now, there's been considerable improvement in the way we conduct elections in this country. But we still need the support of practically every member of the society.
Do you think the law should change in terms of how security conduct themselves, especially the distance they have to maintain at elections or how they bear arms at the elections? Will it help?
No, I wouldn't think so, and I won't suggest that. I think what should be done, first of all, has to do with our politicians. I recall that when they were getting their certificates after the 2011 election, my address centered on the fact that it should not be a winner takes all. 1, and 2, think of the people who voted you in. Think of their welfare. Don't go in there and try to grab everything and forget. When you abandon the people, when you do not deliver the dividends of democracy to them, this is the kind of reaction.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I mean, these politicians, they sign all sorts of documents of good behavior, conduct well here and there with INEC, and they go out there, they still do what they have to do. And sometimes their followers go out there and wreak havoc in certain cases. So if we're to wait until maybe you say we should change the winner takes all approach, but what if that doesn't happen and we've got elections in our hands?
Again, that's why I feel all of us should come together. We should not allow politicians to keep on holding this country to ransom. They are deliberately doing this to undermine the electoral process, one, and to get away with so many things they keep doing. People should begin now to ask politicians, in 4 years, what have you, or in 3.5 years, what have you done? What have you achieved? And people should come to that point where if you are not representing us well, we're not voting for you, no matter how much you're going to give us in 2015, no matter the number of thugs you're going to bring in, people should stand up to their rights. It's important, it's crucial. On April 5, I do recall that one particular point, Laje High School, my National Commissioner, Professor Laurode, and I had gone there to sort out an issue. It took us 1.5 hours because the communities were arguing that about 10 years ago there was a community clash, and the particular homestead had been devastated. Nobody lived there again. Therefore, no police unit should be there. They moved to another place. Over 1.5 hours. Eventually, when we agreed that the polling units will now be so pleased on that day, and we sent our men there. Less than 30 minutes, they are snatched the ballot box. Who sent them? Who did not want election to take place in those places? Who empowered them? Who gave them money? These are issues that we should look at and ask politicians what they should give an account of how they are running this country. They're not doing well, and I must say.
We'll come back and take a look at some more issues about this election. What date will it be? What's the implication for the general elections? Join us again in just a moment.